So the idea for Haze came about really kind of like post Future Perfect, and we were thinking about what we would do for next gen, and we were building a new engine and things. So one of the things we wanted to do was to do something new, but a shooter. And the feeling was that we should do something more realistic, and that'd be a differentiating thing. A war is a very good place to position a shooter, but again, we didn't want to do something historical, and we didn't want to do something which was too kind of like spacey out there. But an important thing to us was that we would tell a story. So it wouldn't just be a war game where it's just like very, very simple, you're the good guys, these are the bad guys. It would be something that when you played it, there was some evolution of the character, and that we would get you involved more in it.
We wanted to tell a single very strong story, and we didn't feel it was really a very kind of like varied thing, giving the player just one point at which they could choose. So what we wanted to do was, rather than dividing our resources and ending up making a game that had two different threads in it, we just said, okay, well look, let's just have one linear narrative, and we focus on making that the most satisfying, most interesting thing it can be.
One of the things I'm excited about is that we're bringing, with the Nectar gameplay, we're bringing something which I think is really quite innovative to the FPS. You know.
In Haze, what we wanted to do was something that's a kind of strategic experience. And so we were kind of saying to ourselves, well, you know, what could we do with the multiplayer that makes it a bit more interesting? And one of the key things we thought was, well, this idea of, you know, choosing your two sides, rather than just having a situation where you go, okay, well, I want to be, you know, I want to be that guy, I want to be that guy, you know, I want to be the monkey or the gingerbread man. Instead of that, we want to say, okay, well, how about your choice of sides is determined by how you want to play the game, you know, what your particular strengths as a player are. So that was where the idea of kind of having two very different sides came from. And then basically it was a case of breaking down the play styles of different FPS players and saying, well, you know, what are the two most distinct styles you could get, which is where we kind of came up with the idea of having, you know, the very brute force, very kind of like straight down the line, all about kind of like, you know, the running in and taking out people, you know, with the headshots and the close quarters combat with the troopers, and then the rebels, who are much more about kind of like more strategic thinking and more tactical and cunning play.
As a mantle trooper, you're taking Nectar to give yourself super abilities. You know, you have Nectar Perception, which means you can pick the bad guys out from the dark. You've got Nectar Focus, which means that you have a sort of sniping aid, which allows you to get that perfect headshot from a mile out. You've got the Melee Blast, where you can, you know, whack guys across the street. The other one is Nectar Foresight, which allows you to see bad things before they happen. So if a grenade lands near you, you'll see a sort of sixth sense ripple coming out of it, so you can see that that's about to blow up, or someone's going to snipe you from over there, or someone's going to hit you from behind. You'll get that pulse. So all of that is about managing your Nectar dose, which you inject into your own bloodstream. The flip side of that as a rebel is it's a different gameplay experience. As a mantle guy, it's very gung-ho. You run in and you shoot the place up. That's the playing style that's encouraged. Once you become a rebel and you're stripped down of all that armor and all that technology, you've got to be a little bit more wily. So you've got a bunch of special skills for those guys. And of course, the one that everybody's talking about is the play dead ability. You know, take a few shots, ham it up, lie down and pretend to be dead. Once they turn around and lose interest, you can jump to your feet and slug two in the back of his head. Being a mantle soldier, it's all about taking lots of nectar, but not too much nectar. Because if you take too much, you'll overdose. And when you overdose, you lose the ability to tell friend from foe, and you lose partial control over who you're shooting at. So every time your reticule passes over someone, you'll automatically fire. So you become an enormous danger to your own squad if you overdose.
One of the things that people think about the game when they first kind of heard us talking about it was that, oh, you know, Haze is a game about drugs. You know, Nectar is, you know, the thing that Haze is about. But really, Nectar is just kind of like a means to an end more than anything else. It's like Nectar allows us to kind of put across the message of the game in terms of, you know, depicting this thing where Mantle are kind of like, you know, shielding your view of the real world, you know, kind of hiding that from you. And also it allows us to kind of implement some quite interesting gameplay mechanics that, you know, particularly have this really interesting dynamic whereby Nectar is very much the Mantle Troopers' greatest strength, but it's also their greatest weakness, which is something that the Promised Hand Rebels can exploit. And so the AI in the game is driven by our Conspire AI engine. Basically, Conspire is a very generalized AI solution that is, it's planning based rather than being a simple kind of state-based system. So at any particular point in the game, rather than just saying, okay, well, you know, I need to kill him, so I run to him and do this thing, the AI is saying, well, okay, yeah, I need to kill him, but what tools do I have to do that? You know, what's the best thing to do? What weapon do I have? You know, do I have any vehicles nearby? You know, what is the tactical situation? Then planning the best solution, you know, based on how they appraise that. The thing it mainly allows us to do is that it really frees up the complexities of strongly scripting certain gameplay situations. So, you know, in anything like any of our previous games, like Time Splitters, Second Sight, I mean, any of the gunfights and the combat situations you encountered there, it's all quite strongly scripted. Whereas now, you know, with Conspire, it's very easy to just drop AI characters into an environment and get an interesting, dynamically evolving gunfight from that.
It's a system that you'll be on both sides of. I mean, multiplayer, it opens up new possibilities. So I mean, that's key as well. But yeah, I mean, it's a big moment for us. So fingers crossed.